I see what you're trying to Why was he down? You can on a computer but not on a phone. Well, not on Android. Because when I'm on the page, it doesn't ask the page. Doesn't sit properly. Not bad.
Filming it, guys?
Yeah, live streaming. No, I'm a teacher, so.
You're live.
I'm going to ask you once to be quiet. I'm going to ask you there twice to be quiet, please. Right, thanks very much for coming. I'm not really sure about how many numbers we're going to have tonight. This is our first meeting we're going to have. So we're quite a new group. We're only less than 2 weeks old. Yeah, we're just formed at the end of the summer when we had nothing else to do. So, and we're brought together by a sense that collectively, I think, so us teachers got together. We believe in the merits of independence. So we got together. We had a chat about things we could do. We came up with this idea of maybe a night that we could invite other teachers or our colleagues on to kind of just put it out there, because I know there's definitely people in this audience that are undecided or even thinking of voting no. So tonight, this is an opportunity for you here to ask questions, for people that do have the answers. Yeah, we don't have Alex Salmon in the room, but we do have Robin McAlpine, we've got Susan, John, our union representatives. We're going to hear from Mary as well, a young person. So, first of all, I'll just introduce myself. Another Mary. So I'll just give a very, very quick presentation. My name's John Paul, I'm a modern studies teacher here, and I think for me, what motivates me is because modern studies kind of deal with the problems, issues Westminster are dealing today. So it's just a quick question. When you're in hospitals and you go to school, and you wonder, where does all the money come from? Where does the money come from? For the equipment and all the rest of it. I'm just going to pick someone. Do you know the answer there? Yeah. What's your name again? Stuart. Stuart, what's the answer?
The Westminster government.
Well, it comes from taxes. Yeah, but not our taxes directly. And this is what gets me. So some people think, oh, it's because Scotland's too poor, we don't have enough money. But in actual fact, when you look at our taxes, actually, we're not too bad, 9.5%. Our population's about 8.4%. More importantly, that big one up there, North Sea, if you took that away, we would still generate enough tax, the same as an average UK. Okay, so that's a bonus. But what's interesting about Westminster is all our money, only these two things here, we are responsible for. Tiny wee bit, 7%. And what's going to happen? People talk about, oh, we've got new powers coming. Well, after 2012, when new powers come in, we only actually have 8% of the power. So, you think, where does all our money come from? And this is the most important thing that annoys me. We need to talk about the Barnett formula. Really strange, the Barnett formula. So, the UK's filled with these old weird traditional things that come from tradition, and the Barnett formula is one of these. And it's an allocation of money, basically for every pound the UK government spends, they take all the money, for every pound spent, They give £1.17 to Scotland, 0.97 per head for everyone in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. So a lot of people stop right there and go, we're better together. Oh, the Barnett formula, it keeps us, it funds Scotland. And it leads us to this myth that somehow we're a subsidy junkie of some sort. And it really frustrates me because it's very partial. If you look at the way money's allocated in England, actually people in London get a fair deal at £1.24 for every £100. It takes no account into how much we contribute, so Scotland already contributes substantially more. And it only applies to certain things, mainly education, health, these things have devolved Parliament. So there's still a lot of money. So just to run through it, the mechanics. Our taxes are collected, it's about 57 billion. The money goes down to London, Whitehall, Treasury. They spend it on, they decide how much England are going to spend on things like health, education, social work, housing. And they work out how much Scotland gets in return. And the Scottish Parliament gets a grand total there at 38 billion. I don't know if you can see anything that's wrong with that. Now, the important thing is there's no link between how much money we generate, how much wealth we generate as a country, and how much we spend. So that really frustrates me. So what about the rest of the money? £18 billion. Well, what happens? The UK government spends it on defence, welfare, immigration, projects like HS2, the London sewers, all these projects. We pay 8.4% of that because that's our population. And what the UK government goes, right, you're at 8.4, so your contribution to all that is 25 billion. Even though that money, like I think the SP did a study about defence, not all that money is spent in Scotland. Only about 1.9 billion of the 3.5 billion that we're responsible for, that we pay for, is actually spent here. So, super frustrating. So just quickly, all our money goes to Westminster. It borrows money. It decides what it's going to spend. It gives it to the Scottish Parliament. It spends the rest of the money and then it works out our percentage and it says, you also owe us that. They put that together and they come up with a grand total. Now, people looking at that, and this we get more than we make when we earn. Well, the UK spends far more than it earns as well. And the problem is, we're not in control of that. There's no relation between that and that number up there. So what happens if UK decides to cut cuts? John's going to talk a wee bit more about that. Well, there's a proportion reduction in our budget from Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and we're powerless to do anything about that. We can't borrow substantial amounts of money. So, what's that? How does that affect education? Well, our education system is vulnerable to UK ideology, and if their ideology is market-driven, then that puts us at perilous. But we have no way to protect that. So privatisations, not just in education, but in health and all the rest of it, that has a major impact on the Barnett formula and how much we get. SNP looked at this before, and this is what they predicted. Now it just looks like a number, they call it the Barnett squeeze, but in actual fact, that's real money. That's money that's coming out of our school budgets, that's money that's coming out of our pensions, that's money that's coming out of frontline services. So we, I think, as a profession, if we're going to be serious about things, we need to think about how we're going to stand up to that. And for me, what frustrates me currently is when we go on marches and we're out in the streets, people say, well, the UK government goes, well, that's devolved, that's a Scottish issue, that's nothing to do with you. The Scottish government says, well, it's nothing to do with us because the block grant comes from us, we can't choose how much money we get, we can only implement the cuts. And it leaves education in this kind of sticky middle ground where no one's taking control of it. And there's no clear way for us to defend education through traditional means because there's no link in our democracy. So what's wrong with the Barnett formula? Myths as subsidy junkie, keeps Holyrood's pocket money Parliament. I feel we have no accountability. Our public services are vulnerable. There's no link between our wealth. In fact, there is a new oil field as well, the Clare field that they're going into. If we hit an oil boom, that doesn't necessarily mean we'll get more public money to spend. It just depends on how the UK government decides to spend that. So I think my question is, how can we be true custodians of the education system if we allow the dependency and the insecurity of the Barnett formula to continue? I think that's something we need to challenge as professionals in education. We're going to change a wee bit. We're going to have Robin from the director of the Commonweal to come and talk about some of the sort of ideas that they've got for an independent Scotland. and he's going to answer some questions, and then I think he's going to go home because he's hungry. So, Robin, if you want to come up just now.
I'm not giving the microphone in the size of this place, and I'm absolutely starving. This campaign is getting mental. My daughter started primary school in Monday. I don't think I'm going to see her again until Saturday afternoon, or out in the morning at press conferences, and every night we need talking at meetings. So if there's an order, happy to go first. I'm only going to talk about a couple of things then. Take any questions that you have about the kind of general stuff. I spent a lot of nights, a lot of time in town halls going over the kind of general questions that people might have about how can things be done commonly. We started a project just to see what would be things that you might do if you had the powers of independence. We thought we would do 6 papers and explore it a bit, announced it, didn't have a name at the time. When we put it out, we were going to do 6, and we just got knocked down. Absolutely knocked down in the interest of practitioners, activists, academics, economists, thinkers, writers who said, can I contribute, can I contribute? We're now up to 50 policy papers, and it grows all the time. We've got an excellent paper on economy of education, which is from Professor Brian Boyd, which is on the Reid Foundation website, reidfoundation.org, and the Commonwealth Project, allofusfirst.org. You'll find them on there. So we've done lots of these bits and pieces. And what I think is important about them is it does not take the slightly more party political position of the SNP, of saying this is what's going to happen in a kind of fairly safe managerial sort of way. I should say the white paper's pretty good, and as a starting point, with a few major failures, section on energy is terrible, and section on bank regulations is mad, and corporation tax cut stuff's just ill-informed and silly. But as a general document, I think it's a good starting point. But that's just a starting point. We need to talk about what it is that we want to do. And my biggest problem with what the SNP's done in the campaign is not the policy proposal that's making the suggestions. It's trying to explain to people what's fundamentally wrong with the UK, which means that any of us that care about public service have to get out. And it's fairly straightforward. It's the structure of the economy and the impact of the wage distribution of the economy that we have in Scotland. Why does that matter to you? Let me explain. If you were to see what is a decent salary, what would you see as a decent salary when you want to live on? You feed your family, you pay your bills, hire a tax lawyer, you're not going to be relying on tax credits. £25,000 to £35,000 a year, sort of decent salary without being excessive. Well, if you take everybody who's working in Scotland just now, only 1 in 5 earns between £25,000 and £35,000. 3 out of 5 earn less than £25,000. Half earn less than £21,000. If you earn £14,000, you're still better off than 30% of the population. And if you're in the poorest 10% of the working population in Scotland, you'll only take home £6,000 by the end of this year. Max. It's the average. So we have the second lowest paid economy in the developed world. It's not a direct comparison for a number of reasons, because obviously they've got higher cost of living. But to give you an example of what it looks like if you don't have a UK form of economy, in Norway the average salary is £45,000, but even more importantly, for the poorest 10% of people in employment in Norway, their average take-home salary in a year is £25,000. So in Norway, the poorest 10% earn on average what we earn in the entire economy. Their cost of living is about 15%, 20% higher than ours. So you can take some of that off. But as you can see, you don't have to take it all off. But you're public sector, you're teachers, you have a different wage structure, you're not in that kind of labour market. Why should you care? Well, it's very straightforward. That problem of unequal distribution of wages and people not having enough money in their pockets is why you face cuts. It's almost the sole reason why you face pressure and cuts on budgets. And it's because of this. People don't have money in their pockets that can't pay tax. We took the Scottish tax model, so this is the computer model that calculates tax for Scotland. We did nothing with it in terms of the size of the GDP. So we didn't do that thing that politicians do, looking at the and say, well, we'll just grow the economy and that'll fix all the problems. It never does. So we didn't touch the size of GDP. We didn't change tax rates. So the right, the political right, is the only tax the whole thing. No, we didn't do that either. All we did was we took the income distribution that they have in a Nordic country. So you don't have massive high salaries at the top, and then from about 80% downwards, you don't have these low and rapidly falling, very low wages, and you have much higher participation, you have much less higher level of employment, particularly among women. So we did that, we just spread the salaries that are already there as if it was a Nordic economy, and we ran the tax model again. By doing nothing else, it generated £4 billion of additional income. And that's the deficit closed. That does not include, you probably save about another £2 billion on tax credits, maybe £2–3 billion in tax credits and other costs, and you'd save another bit again on all the remedial costs that you have to pay to deal with poverty, to deal with low wages. It would be worth £6, £7, £8 billion to Scotland if we could just get our economy functioning, spread, an income spread like they have in the Nordic economy. You would not be looking at budget pressures if we could get to what they have in Nordic economies, and this also applies to places like the Netherlands, to quite an extent Germany, Switzerland, a whole bunch of other countries. Remember, we're the fourth most unequal country in the world, and that means we have the fourth, in the developed world, that means we've got the fourth least efficient tax base in the developed world. That's why Britain continually and permanently has problems funding its public services. It's got nothing to do with tax and rates, everything to do with the economy. What happened was, in Britain, we went through that Thatcherite revolution, where they said, we're going to do all these things which are going to change the country. And they did, they cut taxes, and they caused this inequality, they did all sorts of things. What they didn't do is have the courage to do the other part which they should have, which is to say, right, fine, once you've done it, you can't have the post-war welfare state. It can't exist. They couldn't say that. They couldn't come out and say that because they wouldn't have liked it, so they lied. They created one half of the deal, the American half, with the low wages and the poor income distribution, but pretended we could fund the other half. And what they've been doing ever since, I mean literally ever since, in the 80s they used the oil to fund the difference, and a bit of privatisation. In the 90s they privatised and they PFI'd it, and then they started going with crazy banking deregulation so that would cover up the finances. And this was all just covering stuff up. What's happening now is that they are facing the reality of what they created, an economy that can't sustain a welfare state, and they are using that to bring down the welfare state. That was always the plan. The plan was always create the shit economy and then prove you can't have a welfare state. That's where we are in Britain. It's not true. Now, I won't go into industrial policy too much, just to say it's worth understanding why. It's worth understanding why we have that income distribution. A lot of people think it's something to do with tax. It's not tax. I cannot say this enough. And it's a surprising thing, but in Britain our tax system is more progressive than it is in a Nordic economy. Our tax system is more progressive. It's our wage system that's massively less progressive. They don't have to have progressive tax, they tax the rich a lot more. Because they're rich aren't as rich as our rich, and they're poor aren't poor like our poor. If you've got progressive wages, you don't need progressive taxes. So, what caused that problem? What created this fundamental difficulty? It's the nature of economic approach to the economy. We have a wealth extracting economy. If you look at the economy and the industry sectors that we have and what they do, they are largely wealth extracting. They don't create wealth, they take it away. So if you think about it, something like the retail sector, this is Glasgow, the retail world. The retail sector makes all of its income from you. It's not productive. They call themselves wealth creators. They're not creating wealth, they're really taking wealth out of your pockets. And you used to spend that previously, but you used to spend it in what were much more diverse and local economies. So your wealth went back into your economy and it cycled round and round. It created more and more wealth. Now, your wealth goes into a multinational corporation, which is almost certainly equity owned outside this country. So they extract wealth, they don't create it. Think about property development. 7 out of 10 of the richest people in Britain are property developers. Of course they are. Who can you go wrong? Buy a house, wait, that's all you've got to do if you've got money. And what does that do? They control the cost of housing, they control land, they control all the elements of housing, and they used it to push house prices up and up and up. And you all thought that was going good for you, but it didn't, it never did, it was never helpful. All that does is it extracts money from you, and particularly the next generation who are trying to buy a house. And it goes in your pockets. Once again, they're not making anything, doing anything, creating anything, they're trading land and they're trading existing houses, and they're using it to push money up to extract wealth from you. I really need to point out that the banking system does exactly that. Hello, would you like a customer service meeting? We've got some more loans that we can give you that you don't need, so you can buy shit you don't need. We'll charge you handsomely for it. That's the UK banking system. It doesn't happen in Germany. 75% of the banks in Germany are publicly owned. It doesn't happen in, sorry, I'll say that again, 75% of the banking market. If you have your accountants in a private bank in Germany, you're in a small minority. It's even less likely that happens in Japan. Almost all the banking market for retail is in the collective ownership. And all they do is they give you a credit card, they give you a bank card, give you some money for your savings, they give you a loan if you need, they give you a mortgage if you need, and they'll give you the hell of a loan. Oh, hallelujah for that. We have a banking system, a retail system, a property development system, an advertising industry, a marketing industry, a whole field of industries which create wealth only by taking it from you. Now, how do we used to create wealth? Good old-fashioned case. Any studies economics in here. We used to talk about productivity and balance of trade and innovation and manufacturing, industrial output. But those things require patience and investment. And patience and investment will make you wealthy eventually, but not fast enough. In Britain, we became greedy, massively greedy, and a small number of people restructured the economy for fast turnaround. If you borrow sterling, and this is genuinely true, if you borrow sterling at lunchtime and you haven't made a profit by tea time, you've done something wrong. That's why we keep interest rates very, very low, because money is so cheap in this country, you can speculate with virtually anything. You can actually borrow money in Britain, go and loan it at the standard bank rates in another country, and that makes you automatic profit. Just understand why it is that big finance makes so much money, because we run the entire economy for their benefits. If we were doing it any other way, like a normal country, we were investing properly, we would be creating employment in areas which are skilled. Because this is the crucial point. If you're skilled, you'll get paid. If you're unskilled, you won't. It's not actually a function of you, it's a function of the job that you're in. So what we've created an economy which is low skill. And this has made people incredibly wealthy, just not anyone who's employed. Owners became wealthy. People who were employed didn't. You've seen it again just this week. Once again, the GDP of this country is rising, making the same people who were rich before richer again. Wages aren't rising, including yours. And that's why it is that we've been getting higher and higher inequality, which is why it is that we've got a tax base, which means that we can't sustain public services, which means it's so easy for the Daily Mail and others to use their austerity rhetoric to say, ah, well, education, it wasn't really that important, was it? Or at a weekend, I was once again on a panel with someone who was convinced that free higher education is a luxury that we should be having because we can't afford it anymore. Oh, we can afford it. We can afford it if we do what we should do, which is address the fundamental problems within our economy, to create an economy that works for people and not for big finance, big money, big ownership. Now, I can see that some of you would like me to tell you how to do that, but that's probably going to take more than the 10 minutes that I've got. Suffice to say, we just need a shift. We just need a shift in our mindset. Westminster has only one political philosophy. It's only had one political philosophy for 40 years. And it's a conflict model of social and economic development. Very roughly, if you take two people and put them in a room, whoever comes back out alive must be the best. Must be. The other one, nothing to learn from. If we do that again, over and over and over, eventually we will have created a list, a group of the best possible people. Hallelujah. No, that's a charter for bullies and psychopaths. It is a charter for bullies and psychopaths. And that's how a lot of big business has behaved. It's behaved like bullies and psychopaths, closing down high streets, putting people out of housing, make housing unaffordable for people, throwing all the costs of all the social harm back onto the public sector. I want to say, by the way, it's not the corporation's fault. I know that might seem an odd thing for me to say, but if we create a policy framework which allows them to do this, how can we blame them? If you say tax is voluntary, it's not their fault if they don't pay tax. If you say that we are going to make environmental regulations the lowest in the developed world, well, it's not their fault if they pollute. It's our fault. We let them. And when I say ours, I don't mean ours. I mean Westminster's. Because Westminster doesn't reflect the views of what people actually want. If it did, we would have a national-owned railway, a national energy system, we wouldn't have privatised the Royal Mail, and we'd be working towards a high-wage economy. We can do it. The key thing is we've got to give away that conflict model. You're familiar with the conflict model. It's the meritocratic model. Set a 16-year-old a test based on what we think at any given time is the right test, and for the whole rest of their lives, the winners will win and the losers will lose. This is the fundamental idea over and over again at the heart of the Westminster system. We need to get away from it. That me-first politics left us all in second place. We have to have different kind of politics. One that puts all of us first. That's a way of saying, and the slogan, all of us first order. A politics that puts all of us first recognises that actually mutual development, a mutual model of development works better. What you see is, of course, there's competition. Of course there is. Just like in a classroom, some kids are going to be better than others. But your aim is not to rig the playing field only for the ones who are going to win anyway. What you do is you create a playing field that enables the maximum number of possible people to get the most out of it that they can. And if you support them to that level, if you create a political philosophy that says we will lift the conditions up so that the maximum number of people can manage, and then that bit at the top is where they compete. That's how they do it in a Nordic economy. So when they run their economies, when they run their an industry sector, what they see is everybody in this industry sector, of course you're competing, but 80% of your interests are combined. 80% of your interests are the same. You know, if you're in the biotech industry, your interests in having a high school population are the same. Your infrastructure interests are the same. Your export capacity interests are the same, and so on and so on. So what they do is they work in the first 80% of saying, how do we make it better for everybody, and then let people compete. We just say, stand back, rip each other's eyes out, we'll enjoy it from the sidelines. That's the British model. We need to change this. We need to change this fundamentally. That model says that the economy is outside of democracy. That model is that you can't cut the market. There's nothing you can do about it. That is rubbish. The economy is part of society. Our society is democratic. If we want to move towards a high-wage economy, we should be intervening to do that. If we do that, we fix everything. A productive economy, manufacturing, which requires investments, which requires national investment banking, all sorts of strategies for investment, among the things in industrial policy that we want to do. A productive economy creates good jobs. Good jobs create good wages. Good wages create good public finances. Good public finances create strong ability to invest in public services and infrastructure, and the ability to invest in public services and infrastructure is what creates the social cohesion that we see that we want from our society. This is what Scotland says it wants. It says it again and again and again in the ballot box. Every single time Scotland gets a chance to vote for that post-welfare state, post-war welfare state settlement, they choose whichever government stands at an election best able to represent that. I am contemptuous of chattering middle-class arseholes who say that Scotland is just a selfish nation that voted for the SNP in the last election because it was offering freebies. It wasn't freebies. It was a statement of intent. The SNP is not perfect by any manner or means, but when it came right down to it, they backed a non-marketised health service and a non-marketised education service. And that might have looked like it was benefiting middle-class students, but that's not what Scotland voted for. Scotland voted for that post-1945 welfare state settlement, and it will again when it gets the chance. Because the last thing that I want to say is that while this is all, I've deliberately gone through a bit of economics and a bit of technical, while the detail is enormously important, and while all the ways that we fix things, and we can fix things, and ways that we can organise things is important, in the end, there is no political decision that you can make on the basis of details. That's not how it works. There's only one way that you can make a decision about the future of your country, and that's on the basis of the values of the country in which you want to live. Is this the country in which you want to live? How do you want it to be? How you get there is what you do once you've made that decision. And so the decision that I think that we've got to make in Scotland is straightforward. Do we want to follow Britain off the end of the cliff? That's where they're going. The NHS is over. If anyone is in doubt of that, spend some time on the internet, Google Philippa Whitford, she'll explain why. NHS is over in Britain. If we stay with them, it's over here too. And when the Labour Party tells you that we're insulated from it, we're not. And I can explain why the TTIP protocols that are about to come into the EU will mean that if England privatises its higher education sector, it will be illegal for us to block it, because you can only block it at a country level, and we would be a region. Therefore, if England doesn't block it, we are not going to be allowed. The NHS is over. So how it's going, it's already over, and if you listen to Bill, you should explain why it can't come back. That's only one part of what's going to collapse. We already know what's happening to the social security system, to welfare. It's largely over in this country. Lowest unemployment benefit, lowest disability benefit, lowest state pension in the European Union. 28 countries in the European Union, and we're at the bottom. It's over. You want to live there. And if you don't, what are you going to do? How are you going to make that choice? Because Ed Miliband isn't offering anything different. He's offering a slightly smilier version of exactly the same process. And that's where the UK is going. And who's speaking out against it? The Green. I can't even pluralise that when it comes to England. The Green. The one Green MP is the only person that's challenging that. and they can't even get on the telly because the telly is just a screen with Nigel Farage on it. So they can't get this, they can't get a challenge to this order because the newspapers have got it nailed down, the BBC's got it nailed down, and all the political parties have got it nailed down. If you want it to be different, you have to ask yourself how. Now, in any case, can I make the strong suggestion that democracy is like a dog? If you want it to behave, you need to keep an eye on it. And our democracy is far too far away. Our democracy is miles away, literally and figuratively surrounded by a ring of steel to keep plebs out. That's Westminster. Is it going to change? Seriously, is it going to change? I can't see how. Nobody's suggesting it's going to change. In a few years' time, be absolutely focused on this. Do you think that Prime Minister Boris and Deputy Nigel are going to do anything which reflects the country you want to live in? I can't see it. I don't believe it. It's going to go that way. Do you have values that are different? And if so, stand up. If your values are different from that, stand up. Because if you don't stand up, the decision will be made for you. If you want to stand up, and you believe that there's a different set of values, a different country that you want to live in, now is your last chance. I hear people saying we've got another shot in 5 years. Brilliant. Great. In 5 years we can be voting here to try and become independent so we can start a new national health service. But this is our last chance to save the Scotland, the values of the Scotland that we have. Because the next time we get a shot, it's going to be unrecognisable. Dear God, just think 5 years ago. Think how unrecognisable it is now. I'd never heard the word food bank 5 years ago. Think what's coming next. Think about it. And listen to what they're saying. They're going to punish Scotland. And so, a simple question. Keep your democracy close. And remember, the thing they will never tell you in this bloody campaign. Independence gives you power. Because I am a big believer in a final showdown in this century. I think they've gone beyond the point personally when we're going to see class war is the way that we're going to get social change. So what's left? There's power and there's democracy. That's my belief. There's power and there's democracy. If we keep our democracy weak, and Britain's a weak democracy, then power, financial power, military power, corporate power, that will dominate. If we keep our democracy strong, then we can make the power behave how we want. And to keep democracy strong, that means we have to have powerful citizens. And that's you. We want powerful citizens, we need independence, because Britain makes its citizens weak. Independence gives you power. And independence amplifies your voice 12 times. I cannot say this enough. In Britain, your voice is quiet. In Scotland, your voice is 12 times louder. What you say in an independent Scotland is 12 times more important than what you say in a non-independent Scotland within Britain. That's the key thing. Make your voice loud. Make the values that you want to espouse loud. Make them important. Make it the voice that changes this country. And if that isn't enough for you, think about this. If you vote yes, there'll be no more Daily Mail in Scotland.
Last 5 or 10 minutes questions directed at Robin, primarily about economic, because we will be talking more about teaching as such. So if there's any people got questions about the economy or anything, or anything
at all, or specifically, if there's anything which is not teaching related, so for example, if you want to talk currency, talk currency, if you want to talk pensions, talk pensions, all that stuff as well, I do every night. So if you have general questions about the technical and structural issues of independence, 5-10 minutes, shoot away. If you want me to withdraw or just leave, you shoot.
I'm also quite interested in the vision, the vision of the UK, the vision of Scotland. And for me, the vision of the UK can be summed up by the fact that they had 375 billion quantitative easing, which they could have stuck into the economy and done infrastructure projects and wiped out personal debt, that kind of thing. But they chose to give it to the 5%. What's the vision for independent Scotland?
Okay, let me first of all start with some stuff that I might have told you that I didn't. I'm going to tell you about a chap. It's a real person. Fabulous name. He's called the Remembrancer. Any of you know who the Remembrancer is? Yeah, thought you wouldn't. If you look in the House of Commons, the Speaker, who runs the show, has behind him a wee kind of cubby hole. There's a guy in it. He's the Remembrancer. The purpose of the Remembrancer is to remind the Speaker that there are certain things he's not supposed to do. Who puts the Remembrancer there? The Remembrancer is the representative of the City of London in the House of Commons. The City of London, the financial centre of Britain, has a constitutional right to
place a man permanently right behind the guy that runs government, and the Remembrancer's job is to remind him that it is unconstitutional for the House of Commons to act against the interests of the City of London. Think I'm making that up? Get yourself onto Wikipedia. The Remembrancer. We have a government in which there is a representative of big finance permanently there reminding it not to fuck with their interests. Or another point, because this is not about vision. Now, I want to go further than this. This is not just about vision. Let's say McAlpine wasn't rubbish, and let's say he was a serious contender for getting in. I would still be arguing for independence on the basis of the structure, because every country normalises what it is. So we think what we've got is normal. So you think it's quite normal that we have unelected clerics making the law in this country? That's just normal. Do you know the next country after Britain that's got unelected clerics making the law is Iran? Britain and Iran. We have a fundamentally problematic structure of our establishment, of our state. And it's partly a relic of a collapse of the empire, and it's partly a hangover from the aristocracy. It's not just what they say they would do, it's the structural state of the Britain that we're in. Okay, what's the vision for Scotland? Shortly, because I mean, the short version is a society that puts all of it first. But the longer version fills a book I should have told you about, which is you're getting all of us first.org, all 50 papers we wrote up as a short book, which anybody can understand. It was written as if it was for a 16-year-old school leaver, no technical jargon, no footnotes, no references, just an explanation.
I think it was it actually.
That's it.
I found it a wee bit more difficult than 16 right now.
Where
was that?
People have dumb it down the education. No. So we put it in, that's the full vision, that's the full picture of what we could do. But I want to put it like this. I had an interesting exchange on Saturday. I was at the Festival of Politics, and it was a debate on poverty and health outcomes, which rapidly turned into a debate about the economy and why it's causing the health problems, which rapidly turned into a discussion about the independence campaign. What was really interesting was there was a bunch of people in the audience who were all standing up and saying, I've never been involved in politics, and it's amazing, there's this life, there's this vibrancy, the people are actually engaged again. And I said, yes, they are. Whatever happens, even with no vote, old Scotland's over, it's finished, dead, you can't go back. A model of big, powerful institutions telling us how our country is going to be run won't return. There's at least 250,000 of us who are activists who are in one way involved in this campaign, even if it's just reading wings over Scotland every morning to find out the truth. 250,000 people in this country plus will never go back. And that's more than they've got in the establishment. And in this debate, I was saying, yeah, that's the future, that's how it's changed. And the other guy, who was the Better Together chap, said, nah, people always think that. They always go back home, they always crawl back under their duvets. So the thing is, we've got to pick the best institutions. What are the institutions? Because not the people. People are going to say it's the institutions, and the British institutions are the best in the world. That was the discussion. That was it. So I said, yeah, there's your two visions. I genuinely have come really, I always did, but more than ever, I have come to believe the only answer is with people and by people. We have to stop having what I would call franchise democracy. We let a bunch of professionals disappear over a hill once every 5 years and run the show on their own. And when they come back again after 5 years, they fail, because they always do. They're not interested in why we think they failed or what ideas we've got. They just come back with a different marketing pitch. We've got to pick one of the two of them again, and they're back over the top of the hill again for another 5 years. My vision is that we choose a Scotland that people want. And we do that by having an empowered population rather than an empowered elite. I'd love to tell you all about it, because there's piles of stuff. I highly commend as a starting point 2 reports on the ReidFoundation.org website. One is the Silent Crisis, which is about the failure of local democracy in Scotland, a massive failure of local democracy. We are the least democratic country in the developed world, and if you didn't know that, you need to learn that, because it explains a hell of a lot. And the other is a report called Government by the People, which proposes 5 simple steps which we could take to become a participatory democracy, where people make decisions and not closed room panels of experts. Shall I run this?
Yeah,
I can see
I think it's
taking up too much time.
You're going forever.
Literally.
We're not an off switch in back there. Does anyone have any just very brief or any comments so we can keep them all to the end, but Robin's not going to be there to answer them.
If there's a currency or technical,
That means that
this may be your last shot, I don't know.
other people might be able to speak.
There's a question coming here, no?
Yeah.
No. Okay.
We've got a couple of questions online, if you want.
Go on.
There's one, how would mortgages be affected by independence?
Okay. The suggestion that mortgages would change is once again there would be a problem with mortgages. So much of what you hear which is criticism of the possibility of independence is predicated in one massive logical fallacy, which is that an independent Scotland would be exactly the same as Britain, just into the future. That's madness. So first of all, there's two answers to that. This is positing the idea that Scotland's borrowing costs would rise rapidly after independence because we wouldn't have the strength, inverted commas, of the City of London. To which I say, who do you think is going to have, just out of interest, if anyone's, not people who usually take an interest in international bond markets, but who do you think borrows money cheaper just now? Britain or Ireland? You all
Ireland, I think.
good, because you've been in this campaign and paying attention. Everyone thinks it's Britain. No, Ireland borrows money cheaper than Britain. Because the idea is that the central bank can't borrow money, their interest rates have to go up, which reduces mortgage rates up. That's not what's going to happen. Scotland is is an oil-rich, heavily exporting nation. We are not going to find it difficult to borrow money in international markets. There'll probably be a 12-month period when things, there's a bit of turbulence, but that's easily managed. And even the short-run period, Scotland's not going to have any difficulty with that. But the point is, our mortgage system is mad. I mean, it's ridiculous. Our mortgage system is extremely badly managed because our housing system is extremely badly managed. We need to manage and control house price rises. Would you be surprised to hear that the last 20 years, house prices in Germany didn't rise at all? And most young professionals in Germany wouldn't even think about a mortgage. Why would you want the millstone of a mortgage right in your neck? They have incredibly high quality, professional grade, spacious public rental accommodation in prime sites and city centres, and that's where they live. They can do it, they can treat it like their own house, that's where they live. So we need to address the housing market, we're going to address the mortgage market, but above all, what we should really be doing is shifting to that alternative banking system. And it would be very easy, we can do it remarkably quickly. Thank God for fractional reserve banking. If you don't know what that is, Google it. But what we do is every local authority creates its own public bank. If you want to stay in a risky private bank, that's fine, but they create a public bank, and controlled mortgage rates would be the normality as you would get from a local authority owned bank that did that simple, basic, boring banking that I suggested.
Okay, great, thanks very much. Right, so that was a wee bit different than what we expected.
Thanks, folks. Bye.
Right. Oh, we can all relax now. Right. I think we'll stick to education now. So we've got a couple of speakers here. I've asked them to cut it down to 8 minutes. If you want to cut it a wee bit shorter, if you could. Hopefully they'll talk in a different way. So first of all, we've got John McIntosh. He's married to an art teacher, he's a father of two. He's an English teacher in East Wren, and he has been for 18 years, part-time musician. And he'd be more comfortable doing this with a guitar around his neck. Okay, so if you want to come up and
not bother with the mic myself, I suppose. Glad that guy's away. Wasn't he very good, was he? We hope to raise the standard of the speakers now. Unlike Robin, I'm not particularly used to doing this, so he was actually the big finish. We were the warm-up act, but so we're kind of doing things back to front here, which is probably the best way to do things. Then we'll try our best to make it happen. I need to have noticed, basically I'm going to be reading this out to you, hopefully I can do it in 8 minutes. So, I've got about 8 minutes to talk to you, and I'd like to spend 30 seconds of that time right at the start just sharing something with you about myself. I'm not a huge admirer of Ed Balls, but I do have something in common with Ed. Both of us are people who are dealing with stammering as an issue. You know what that means. Okay, so like him, we're working to overcome this. I like to tell that to an audience right away because it helps to raise awareness of what's often quite a hidden problem, and also because it pretty much guarantees your very close attention as you wait with bated breath to see what's going on. So, economics, you say, is more of an art than a science, and I'll leave it to got others to be exercised, but whether I'd be £50 a year better off, one way or another. Frankly, I couldn't care less. I'd vote for Scots to get the chance to run their own affairs, even if I knew it was going to put in the poorhouse. And I know that it's not. But why should we as teachers be concerned about the outcome of this referendum? Largely because England has seen many worrying developments in recent years, and if we vote no, I can't see any reason why Westminster would try the same things up here. I believe that at least at the level of policy and intention, the direction of travel in Scottish education is at least roughly towards the values we share. Values such as community, respect for others, fairness, and some can annoy at egalitarianism. The reality of curriculum for excellence may be a long way from what was originally envisaged, but I think its heart is in the right place. What's happening in England, its heart's not in the right place. So what has been happening? In a nutshell, they're moving away from schools being run by local authorities to a system built on private profit, brutal and simplistic inspection regimes and cheap labour. State education down there has been dismantled piece by piece. It's being placed in the hands of private individuals and groups. This privatisation is of course presented as an attempt to raise standards and rescue failing schools. And of course many state schools, I'm sure we all agree, fail to provide a positive experience for the majority of their pupils. But just handing those over to individuals with their own private agendas is fundamentally undemocratic and exposes young people to all sorts of potentially extreme views. Some so-called academies were handed over to people like Sir Peter Vardy, who was an evangelical Christian car dealer, who's now apparently in his academies promoting the teaching of creationism, which is not something which I want to see happen in Scotland. This drive to privatise is not actually a Tory initiative. All three Westminster parties come to support it, and its chief architect was Labour peer Lord Adonis. The so-called academies were first introduced by David Blunkett in 2000 in the Learning and Skills Act. And since 2011, the Coalition has enthusiastically embraced the idea and has taken it further, introduced by Michael Gove, free schools, which is when people, mainly religious groups, set up schools from scratch. They don't have to convert an existing school. So these schools are run responsible to individuals and organisations. They're granted exempt charity status, and these sponsors can then influence the curriculum and ethos of that school. So many secondary schools, it gets worse. Many of these secondary schools are now actually compelled by Westminster legislation to become academies. From 2012, any school rated by Ofsted satisfactory at the lower has actually been forced to become an academy, and it's had its head teacher removed. So financial incentives are also given to encourage schools to opt out of local authority control. By September 2012, the majority of secondary schools in England had become academies, over half of academies. And in November 2013, there were 3,500 such establishments. Another insidious development in English education is a blatant politicisation of Ofsted. It's no longer independent, using its own standards and judgment to evaluate schools' performance, which is a notoriously complex and tricky task. Chris Keats, General Secretary of ASUWT, said in The Guardian, I think Ofsted is viewed by nobody now as independent from the Secretary of State. It's now been seen by teachers not as an inspection system, but as an arm of government. And the Chief Inspector of Ofsted, Lord Michael Wilshaw, some of you might have heard of, was famously quoted as saying, this is what we're up against, he says, if anyone says to you that staff morale is at an all-time low, you know you're doing something right. That's right from the horse's mouth. Welcome to the brave new world of UK education. Even worse, it gets worse. There are some cases where members of Ofsted inspection teams are actually running academy businesses that are looking to take over the very school being inspected. This is a clear conflict of interest that is allowed and even encouraged. So, and there's more. Some of these academies are paying their SMT six-figure salaries. Well, they obviously have to attract the very best people, don't they? Strangely enough, the same logic doesn't seem to apply when it comes to recruit teachers. In July 2012, academies became free to employ unqualified teachers. Now that's always been something in Scotland. You did a degree, this was always like a graduate profession. That's not been done away with in England. You don't need to be anymore. So, one young head teacher, Richard Cairns, down at school in Brighton said proudly that at Brighton College we have 39 teachers without formal teaching qualifications, and I'm one of them. He was very proud of that fact. So clearly that's not the road we want to do again. And in June 2012, Michael Gove announced the extension of the Teach First programme, immortalised in the reality TV show Tough Young Teacher, some of you might have watched. So some cynics have labelled the scheme Teach First, then get a better job. Now what that means is your graduates, if you get a 2-1 or above, you go to a training course in the summer for 6 weeks and then you're let loose in the classroom, usually with predictable results. This is what you laughingly call the re-professionalisation of teaching. This isn't happening in Scotland, but for how long? In the event of a no vote, what's to stop the Westminster government bringing us into line once and for all? You can give it now. Do we really need an autonomous Scottish education system at all with confusing exams and expensive professional teachers? You can just hear Prime Minister Boris. And I said that written down then. So,
1 minute.
you hear him saying, now time to think the unthinkable, if we're going to be together, let's really be together. So, justice changes to the NHS in England will have knock-on effects on funding up here, even if they don't intervene directly, so education will be affected too. The less education costs in England, the less it will be expected to cost up here. So they've come for the health service, they've come for the welfare system, and they've got to come for education. And can we really rely on Ed Miliband rolling back this process of Greek privatisation? You want to gamble your children's future in that? I don't. I don't want anything to do with the market-driven, pseudo-progressive ideology of Michael Gove and Michael Wilshire. They despise teachers. Gove calls us the blob. You're the blob. And they think that we'll go along with this as we've always done before. I want to chance to run our country along different lines. And just as Robin was saying, for me this process has become a struggle between, on the one hand, the forces of the British establishment and the media lackeys, and on the other hand, ordinary people who know in their guts that we can do better than what's happening in England just now. I said there, just to finish, I said earlier that I didn't care whether independence made me a bit better or a bit worse off. But I do care about a society that works for all its members, not just a privileged club at the top. And I know who I trust to deliver that society. And it's not a gang of old Etonians who've never even had to use the public services they're so happy to cut. And it's not a Labour Party that slides relentlessly to the right every year to try to keep Middle England on board. And funnily enough, it's not Alex Salmond in the SNP either, though I respect a lot of what I've seen since 2011. So who do I trust? You. And me. It's ordinary people exercising control over their own affairs. And when that happens, when our voice is finally heard, really there's no limit to what we can achieve. The whole wide world is out there watching and waiting, and the world will welcome us with open arms and we only walk towards it. So, never heed what the hoodies croak for doing. September the 18th, let's surprise everybody. Maybe not least ourselves. Let's take that first faltering step, like wee babies learn that they walk. Let's open our mouths to say the first faltering word. Maybe hesitating, maybe stammering at first, but slowly and surely finding our own voice. And may the first wee faltering word from our ancient yet newborn wee country be yes.
Next we've got Susan Quinn. So she was a teacher in Glasgow for 25 years. She's an active trade unionist all that time. She has no party political affiliations, but she just believes in the best future for all of Scotland.
Hi, and thank you for having me along. Thanks for organising this. John and I, the last time we were anywhere close to each other, were actually off singing, and we probably are both a wee bit more comfortable doing that. But when I've been asked to speak around why I'm voting yes, I've stepped back from any of the party political stuff and all of the backstabbing and everything that's going on and focused on what's important to me, which Robin's covered much of. It's not going to stop me talking for 8 minutes. And John has got into some of the details of why. But actually, I take the fact that people say to me, but education, it's devolved to Scotland. You can do your own thing just now anyway. Well, we heard about that, and we heard the starts of that. And what I wanted to say is that in the last couple of years, I've been a national office bearer and a negotiator for my trade union, the EIS. Don't speak on their behalf this evening. I speak personally, but I have been a negotiator on their behalf, and I have seen firsthand how what we want in Scotland for our education system can be stymied by the fact that Westminster simply say no. Okay? I don't say it as nicely as that, but they say it. So the most recent of those was around our pensions. And you know that many of us now have a pension age which is well beyond what we were expecting in the first place. Many of us up to the now looking at 68 being our natural pension age. And in Scotland, we were told, you have your own scheme to work out, go away and work it out. And we sat down in good faith with the Scottish Government and with the COSLA representatives and others who are involved in this, and we came up with, as you know if you've followed it within the trade union websites, we came up with a number of options on how Scottish teachers could have a different scheme to that of south of the border, which wouldn't make 68 the natural retiral age. And every time we went back with those options, we were told no. HMR's Treasury said no. That would be too good. You're not getting to do it. And I want that to stop. I want it to stop the fact that every time we try to do something for ourselves, a brick wall is put in front of us. I want us to be able to do everything we want to do for our education system. So in the 25 years that I've worked here in Glasgow, we have had peaks and troughs of money. Jim's here, I see, and he'll know from being a head teacher in Glasgow a good number of years ago. Gordon Brown, he was a great man when he was the Chancellor. Every March, the 1st of March, he gave us thousands of pounds. He had to spend them by the end of March. There wasn't much good planning within it, but money appeared from hither and thither. And now that we've got a new curriculum in place, well, it's 10-year-old, but now we don't have that. The money's gone from under it, and the resources that are needed to do things properly and sensibly and planned are gone because a Westminster government is changing how much they give us and what we get, and we can't do anything about that. And so for me, it's about, from my own personal point of view and the education's point of view, it's about us being able to do everything we want to do with our public services, the way we want to do them. Because anybody in Scotland will know that there is a really common belief around it. It's why, as John said, we haven't got the situation they have at the south of the border of academies and free schools and grammar schools and this one and that one and the next one. Because we still genuinely, across the board, have a collective belief in state education. For better or worse, we have a genuine belief in us all being in the same room around that. And I think independence will give us the power to do everything we want to do with that. And the second reason that I'm voting yes is Robin's corner of it all, which actually is about the fact that if we want to do the very best for the young people in front of us, then we actually have to treat everybody in Scotland better. We Primary 1 started last week, and I should not be in 2014 where I'm having a conversation with a 4.5-year-old where she says, I will get any snack, Miss Quinn. And I said, oh, it's okay, you know, we don't need, I've not got a snack either, we don't need a snack, because we've had a good breakfast. No, I've not had a breakfast. My mammy says I'll get my food at lunchtime. I said that on Saturday when I spoke and I was quoted. In 2014, no 4.5-year-old should be waiting till noon to have their first food. Shouldn't be happening. And it's happening just now because of the measures that have been forced upon us by Westminster. Whatever the discussions we have around what might have happened within the Scottish Parliament, we can't guess or second guess. But we do know that austerity has been driven by Westminster and has been driven by current coalition government, but there is no sign at all that if they don't get back in, and I'm sad to say, I think they are getting back in by one colour or combination of colours around them. Even if the Labour Party get in, it's remaining. They have no plans whatsoever for ending austerity. They have no plans for changing the course that we have. Here in Scotland, we do have a chance to change that course and to make sure that no 4.5-year-old isn't getting anything to eat until noon. No 4.5-year-old is relying on their mammy going to the food bank, and we're in a position where we can make a difference to attainment and achievement for our young people, because we're making a difference to their lives. We're making a difference to everything that we know has an impact on what they do in the classroom. All of the new curriculums, new qualifications, new methods, new everything else makes not a jot if what they're going home to is chaos and hunger and confusion around what's going to happen next to them. All of the evidence is that that's where the difference can be made. And the only way we can make that difference is to create a different country, to create something that is what Robin talked about as the common weal right at the heart of it. And for me, that's what voting yes does for us. For me, that's why I'm voting yes. And for me, that's why I'm getting up and doing this, because between now and the 18th of September, I'm going to do every single thing I can to make sure I don't wake up the following day and think, I wish I'd done a wee bit more. And that's what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking everybody to do. Don't wake up on the 19th and think, oh, I wish I'd argued a wee bit harder for that. We can make a difference, but we've got this chance, and it's going our way. Make sure you take that message back. And thank you.
So final speaker tonight is Barry Black. Barry is a teenager, she's 19, in Paisley, she's just in her final year at uni. She's been actively campaigning. This is just from a sort of campaigner's side of view. She had her first public debate there, unfortunately, with Ruth Davidson. So just to go to hear from Barry tonight.
This is about 10 minutes long, because I know John Paul's going to have a heart attack when I go over 8 minutes. Telling you in advance, it's 10 minutes.
I had to say it.
No, Robin took them. So, my name's Barry Black, I'm 19 and I'm doing politics at Glasgow Uni. Now, I could talk to you tonight about how this referendum is going to affect me and youngsters and how I want to live in this prosperous Scotland. But the truth is, I'm not going to do that, because I think we have it incumbent on all of us to know that politics affects other people too. And the truth is that the odds for me are actually probably better than most people, because in the event of a no vote, when the cuts start coming and the jobs start getting lost and the opportunities declining, I have the opportunity to leave. I'm young and I'm skilled and I've got enough qualifications. I can go to Canada or Australia or New Zealand. My concern is, what about the 50-year-old that can't do that? What about the pensioner that's worried about putting the fire on? What about the youngster that's not had the fortunate upbringing and the good education that I've had? And that's why I'm part of this campaign. But to understand why I'm part of this campaign, we have to take a look at politics in Britain at the moment. Because all my life politics has been guys in suits on green benches shouting at each other. And it seems that no matter which side of that room is in charge, nothing changes. And I mean, Robin actually mentioned something himself, but this is from Radical Independence. Britain currently has the second lowest pay amongst advanced economies. Britain is the second worst for fuel poverty. A country of oil, and we are the second worst for fuel poverty. Britain has the least happy children in the developed world, the worst infant mortality rates, the 8th biggest gap between men and women today, and the lowest level of trust in its politicians in the whole of Europe. We are the 4th most unequal developed society with a wealth gap twice as big as any other EU country. And the slogan of better together is UK OK. I don't think that is okay. I've been waiting for this whole campaign for better together to tell me why we are better together. Positive argument. And the truth is, from what I've just read out there, is that the positive case does not exist. There is no positive case for this United Kingdom. Which begs the question, why do they want us to stay? They want us to stay because, say for instance, I mean, John Paul mentioned it, we're going to be contributing £4.7 billion to build the HS2 high-speed railway that's not even going to reach Scotland's borders. They need somewhere to put their nuclear weapons. Do you know, right, David Cameron tweeted this only a couple of weeks back. You see our whisky industry, right? One deal, so this is one deal with our whisky industry, with China, balances the UK books by £135 per second. That is one deal, £135 per second balancing the UK's books. They need the 0.4% tax that we pay in more that we don't get back. I mean, John Paul spoke about it, we pay in more than we get back. And that's why I find it a brass neck that we're continually told, oh no, you can't afford to look after yourselves. Well, see, even without getting into the economics of it all, just use plain logic. The Conservative Party, the party of greed, the party where private profit rules everything. If we were genuinely a leech on the purse of Westminster, we wouldn't even be having this discussion because they would have got shot of us a long The truth is that they want to retain all the power and all the wealth, and they want to keep you distracted from the heart of this debate. They constantly come out with these scare stories like that, we can't sustain ourselves. I mean, the other one, business will leave. Why? Business goes where there are customers. As far as I'm aware, we're still going to be buying things in our independent Scotland. It serves customers, not nationalities. They know that people don't like stepping out of their comfort zone. And they're preying on that just now because they want to keep you distracted from the heart of this, which is that we don't get the government we vote for. And we haven't for a long, long time. Because the truth is that see all the things that they're talking to you about, that they're throwing at you, the pound, the pensions, you know, tax and immigration or whatever it is, Europe, these are policies. And they are policies that are going to be just as relevant in 10 years or 50 years' time. And it will still be the government making those decisions in 10 or 50 years' time. But the question is, shouldn't that be a government that you voted for? Shouldn't it be a government that represents your needs when it comes to 10 and 50 years' time? And that's why, see, if you were alive during the Thatcher years and you plan on voting no, you need to have a long, hard think. Because I was lucky enough that I wasn't born during Thatcher. I still see the damage that government did. I still see it. And you should remember the poll tax, you should remember the poverty, the industries and the lives that were destroyed. You should remember what she did to teachers. I mean, Mum and Dad were teachers during the Thatcher years. And I mean, I've heard of this stuff and the strikes. You should remember that, and you should remember how powerless we were to do anything about it. How can you tick the box that's going to leave my generation and yourselves that powerless? And that's why things will get better. Because if there's one thing that politicians have in common with ordinary folk, is that they don't like losing their jobs. So if we're independent, your vote, as Robin said, becomes 12 times more powerful. It matters. And they're going to need to fight to keep that vote, to earn it. So they're going to fight to represent you as best they can. The reason that I love the Yes campaign so much is that now that when I walk into a pub, I can't go on a night out without seeing ordinary people argue about the bias of the BBC, or about democracy, or about what currency we should have. I love that ordinary people are waking up to what has been happening for the past 20 years. I mean, Jim Silver says it perfectly. We are now realising the myth of our own inadequacy. And that is what terrifies them, is we're waking up. We're seeing what's been happening and what is happening, and we're also recognising what's coming. And that is what scares them, that we're now realising that this has got nothing to do with Alex Salmond, it's got nothing to do with SNP. This is about me and you having democratic power. This is about us and our children and their children having the power to shape their own futures. We have already seen the good that a Scottish Parliament can do. I mean, you just need to look at politics at the minute. Scotland is clearly going in a different direction. We've got free personal care for the elderly. We've got no tuition fees. I wouldn't be able to go to university if I had to fork out £9,000 every time. We've got no prescription charges. All of these fantastic things. Imagine what we could do if we had all the powers. Independence isn't the end. We don't wake up on the 19th and go, oh, this is it, brilliant, right, we've arrived. Independence is the start. Now, the No campaign has and will continue to look to Alex Salmond and the nationalists and say, what will independent Scotland look like? Oh, you can't tell us, play it safe, vote no. And the truth is, they're asking the wrong people. Because it's no Alex Salmond that's going to be deciding what an independent Scotland looks like. It's us. For the first time, your government's going to have to turn around to you and say, what society do you want to live in? What do you want this country to look like? Now, the tools are going to be in our hands, and for that reason, politics is going to be turned on its head. The Labour Party will have a chance to be rejuvenated, to free itself from looking over its shoulder constantly at Big Brother down in Westminster and make sure it's towing the party line. It has a chance to swing back to the left and be the Labour Party that my grandpa voted for. It stands up for working people and stands up for the things that are important to us, like education, like health. The SNP even knows what's going to happen to them. New political parties might form altogether. We don't know, but politics is going to become an exciting and vibrant thing, and we're all being politicised at the minute. So which means that they're not going to get away with the usual rhetoric they've been feeding us for the past 20 years. We're tuning in and we're watching them closely. Now, I'm just going to finish on this, that I understand people are scared of change. I mean, I touched on that earlier on, but it's a quick story. I've been out campaigning for the past 2 years, and I've been out knocking doors, and I was out in Shettleston, and chatting to this woman's door, and she was really elderly, you know, she had a Zimmer and everything.
Hey, I'll go on with it.
And you're going to need
She came up eventually and she unlocked the door and she just kind of mumbled something at me, and I says, I'm from the Scotland, and she just kind of mumbled something at me and just walked away slowly. She kind of left the door slightly ajar, so I was like, is she wanting to talk to me or not? So I was awkwardly left standing at this woman's door, I don't know what's happening. And then after a couple of moments silence, I just heard her shout from the bottom of her closet, you coming in or no? I'm not actually supposed to be in people's houses, but I trusted my judgment and I went in. And then so I was sitting talking to her, and she was really interesting because she remembers what life was like before the welfare state, which is quite unusual. So she was saying, oh, it was fantastic suddenly. If you were sick, you didn't need to worry about going for the doctor. If you needed glasses, you just got them. It was amazing, fantastic. I was like, that's brilliant. And she went on this big rant about what Westminster are doing is atrocious, it's disgraceful, they're privatising, and it's going to come to Scotland, Lord, it's telling you it's coming here, they're going to take everything from us. And I was just sitting going, I didn't really argue anything. So then I says, that's brilliant, right, so what can I put you down as? And she went, oh, I don't know. Oh, my son. I was like, what do you mean you're voting no? And she says, oh, no, I'm just voting no, that's it. So I was basically pleading this one, because I liked her as well, she was quite funny, she was dead interesting. I was like, you can't, everything we've just been talking about, and I was trying to connect everything we were talking to why she has to vote yes. So I'm basically pleading at her. And she just stopped me and she says, "Man, how much does this mean to you?" I says, "This means the world to me." I mean, like I says to you, I can move away, I've got that option. But I don't want to be phoning my mum and dad to wish them a happy new year. I want to be in the living room with them. I says, "This means the world to me, this is my day off, you're getting paid for this. And this means everything." And she says, there was a wee minute of silence, and it was awkward, but I thought, I could see the calls on my mind working. And she turned to me and she says, "Do you know what, Mary? I am 95 years old. It's about time I stopped being scared." Put me down as a yes. See, I'll just be dead honest. See if it is the fear that's stopping you. If you can see all the arguments and the logical and the reason behind everything that's being said here, the agreeing principle, it's just that fear. As I say, I'm 19. I look down at Westminster at the minute, and that is not the future I want. I don't want them in charge of my pension, my NHS. I don't want that. I look down and I see them getting more and more right wing with a Labour Party that is not protecting ordinary people. I look down and I see more and more austerity, more and more debt, which they refuse to mention. I see a Conservative Party that I can't stand and a Labour leadership that I cannot trust. Westminster is like a sinking ship, and it is going down fast, and at the minute you're powerless on it. So if it is just that fear that's stopping you, I need you to ask yourselves, would you honestly rather stay on a sinking ship out of fear that the lifeboat might not work? So I tell you what, I'm getting on that lifeboat, and I invite every single person in this room, and whoever might see this elsewhere, come with me and let's make it work. Thank you. Any questions? Because I've brought loads of stuff in case.
We'll take about 15 minutes from the floor, and just if you've got comments to make or questions you want to direct to anyone, and if no one can answer, or someone feels like they can answer from somewhere else in the room, just put your hand up and we'll try and get a conversation going, and then we'll finish at the sort of back of 9. Stay behind for a bit if you want. So, any comments, questions from the floor, any concerns?
Can I just ask if there was any undecided people here, if you have been swayed either way?
Good question. So, any undecideds who feel like they've got a better bit
Or are still undecided?
There's 3 there.
What do you think about tonight?
I've enjoyed listening to it. As people would like to come and listen to it and benefit from it. It's my course, I like to benefit on the phone. I haven't done my own personal research yet, but I'll do that. But it's just interesting to hear some of the speakers who spoke really well and make a lot of good points I hadn't thought about before. So it's positive for me in terms of coming to listen to it, but I'm not totally deciding yet either. I'll try and hear a bit of the other side as well before I make my choice. So,
yeah.
Could I just see on that obviously there's a so obviously it seems slanted because everybody's talking for yes, but one of the things that's been happening in debates all around the country for the last year or so, initially you would have a representative from Better Together putting forward a case, but what they were finding was that they were actually losing the argument time and time again. So actually, as a tactic, they've decided to just withdraw, and that's why there are so many meetings happening where it appears to be it's just one-sided. It's actually a tactic to make that happen.
That's actually a point that, because I think last week or the week before possibly, I was supposed to be at a debate in Unite from the community members, and nobody from Better Together showed up. So it just turned into a yes meeting. So that is definitely a tactic.
Can I just say, I think that given that most of us here are obviously good about voting yes, if not already decided to, the campaign in the next few weeks is going to be, I think, certainly from the north side, even more cynical, even more negative, even more fear factor than it has been up to now. And one of the things that really fact that women can't make up their minds. Now, there is a gap in the polls. I mean, I don't like polls, but you can't deny it sometimes when it's so frequent that the vote for independence is lower amongst women. But the reasons for that are not that we can't make up our mind or we haven't got enough information. But by and large, women bear the burden of that austerity and the pay gap and poverty gap that we've already talked about tonight. So, well, I don't know, but the teaching profession is mainly women. And I feel that in our side of the argument, we need to get out there, get to the meetings, and get to people who are undecided much more. And that story you told about on the doorstep, because that's where you go. And they might have been watching the news that night, or they might have been buying the newspapers and the stuff that you get there. And then to get the counter. It's very, very rare to get coherent argument so well put from our side, particularly from women. I'm not knocking the people who are on the telly, but a lot of emphasis is going to be on the next big debate between two middle-aged, middle-class white men, which is not what this is about. And that's a big mistake Alex Salmon made, was making those debates such a key thing. They're not a key thing. People in this room are the key thing to this. So we need to get out there knocking on the doors much more. And so if anybody in our busy lives, now that we are back at scale, just in your local area, that's what I've been doing recently, and finding a lot of people who are undecided because they do hear that negativity and they want to hear something local that is much more positive. And okay, they talk about the euro and the pound, but they want to hear the argument from the heart well put. And they don't always get it. No disrespect to people who are going around doing it, and even on YouTube, the huge meetings that have been fantastic. But let's us get out there in our local communities, knock on the door and talk to people, and I'm sure we'll win this one.
Just on that point, that's the guy that I spoke there, that's actually my dad, right?
And I didn't know you were talking about going to Australia.
What we haven't been doing, and you might have heard this before, but just in case you've not, because I know there are an awful lot of yes supporters here, is we've got these wee slips here, and what they are is 6 key videos about independence, so just what you're talking about. Like there's one that covers basically all the usual things you hear, if it's Labour, there's Jim Sellers talking, women often talking, Philippa Whitford, Ivan McKee on money and things like that. Yeah, that's what I'm pointing him out for, is he's got loads of things talking. So what it means is that when you're talking to taxi drivers and in conversations, if you're not confident enough to argue yourself, or if you're just in too much of a rush, leave people in one of these slips. And what that means is that in the comfort of their own home, they're directed to folk who can articulate the arguments and do it well, and as I say, in the comfort of their own home. So it's just a tip, you're not great.
Yeah, the other thing is, Charlotte's right, one of the things is about the local meetings, and even if it's not a meeting and organising it coming along, when you walk along the street now, you can't fail to see Saturday mornings or otherwise stalls for different groups of yes people. And I think that's the thing. Yes isn't about Alex Salmons, it's not about the Green Party, it's about all of us that are of different persuasions. When we get the yes, we'll fight that stuff out on the 19th. But until then, what's really important, really positive about it is that we're fighting together for that common aim. And I would urge you, if you've got, if you're going out for your shopping on the Saturday morning and you're thinking, right, okay, I've got half an hour, stop and give a hand to the hand, because the numbers are growing. I've been going, randomly just going to Shawlands for a few Saturdays, and the numbers are getting bigger, and they're stopping, helping, just hand out. People just want the leaflets, the slips with the information. And all of the different groups have got their own, their own kind of leaflets. So you'll get the green one that'll give you one area of it, and you'll get There's ones for undecided, and you've got ones for women, you've got for young people, and you've got, and much like you, the lady with the 95, you know, they stop and say, I'm 90, I'm not going to even bother voting. And you go, because it's not, and you're like, well, and you get into the most wonderful conversations. And Robin and that said at the start, Scotland are starting to talk to each other again. Folk are talking about it. And even if you can spare half an hour on your way to something else, the people that have brought the stall out will appreciate it. And it'll give you also more to think about of the people who are undecided or who are voting or think they're voting no because they've been told something that you know isn't quite correct. You know, the BAE workers who have been told you need to vote no because they're going to shut your plants down, the shipyards down if you don't. And that's not the case.
I agree with Charlotte. I know where she's coming from. I think, and what Susan has said, I think it is really important that we get a bit more geared up. This is going to be probably one of the most important months in my life. And we need to talk to people. We need to become, those of us who have already decided about yes. And I think also we need to keep our enthusiasm, because one of the tactics the No campaign is using is it's a waste of time, you're going to lose, it's not going to happen, it's impossible, it cannot happen, and even if you say it cannot happen, you'll be voted out, you'll be voted down. And that's not true. I mean, I'm out a lot for the campaign, and what I've noticed is the politicisation of people, and those of us of a certain age remember slogans about the personal is political. Well, in this circumstance it is. I noticed in my Facebook thing this morning that my partner was at the dentist, and he put on it, arguing just now about the Yes campaign with the dental hygienist and the dentist. Now, I consider that an enormous amount of courage, because I don't argue with anything with that. I've seen Marathon Man, and I know that is it safe, and device at angle, etc., etc. So I'm actually, you know, if the dentist said no, I'd probably shut it. Yeah. But, and there was another message afterwards, they're all thinking about it now months ago. I think we're on the move here. And I think that's really, really important, that every opportunity we use. I'm in Ferguson Park, I don't like dogs, I'm not a dog man, and I've been around the houses in Ferguson Park with an awful lot of dogs. Great response in Ferguson Park, I have to say, house after house after house saying enough's enough. I'm a Labour supporter, but a car actually stopped us to say, we don't know how you vote, big man, how do you do that, and how do you get, have you got a form for that? People trying to register to vote yes. And that is something that's just enormously encouraging. This is superb. Great.
Can I say something?
Yeah, of course, sir.
I'm just going to go here a wee bit, because I hate sitting on my back to people. My name's Alan, I'm a modern studies teacher like John Paul, but I'm a big teacher, John Paul. Winwood, right, well I'm in the Glasgow school here in Smithycroft in the East End, and I was at a yes meeting last night in East Kilbride, and it wasn't a teachers for yes meeting, it was just a general yes meeting, and there was quite a lot of undecideds there, more than there are here tonight. And one of the things that I think as teachers I'm finding, or as a teacher I'm finding a problem, we've only been back since a week ago last Monday, but staff room discussions are now becoming increasingly popular and increasingly engaged. But
you've got a staff room?
We've still got a staff room, we've managed to retain it. But the problem is that there are quite a lot of vociferous no's on my staff.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like elsewhere. But there has been a shift, and it's only been back for 10 days, and there has been a shift, like our colleague here says, if you keep at it. It's no easy. It really isn't easy. And I've ended up actually not arguing about the attack on austerity and the greater social justice that we could have in an independent Scotland, because that's quite a way down the line. If we do get independence, hopefully we will see change, but it's not going to be on the 19th of September. It's not even going to be by March 16 when we declare independence, if we get the negotiations done in that time. But there are some things you can say to people which puts on a light. We can say pretty quickly, goodbye to the House of Lords. Now, what's wrong with that? Just about everyone they say that to, a light comes on. Oh, crikey, aye, the biggest unelected legislative body on the planet. Let's get rid of them for a start. Now, they won't be disbanded, but we'll not be paying for it any longer. If we elect the correct governments, goodbye to nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction. Trident might not go from Scotland. If we elect the wrong government for Scotland, and it's in their manifesto, we will retain Trident, and we elect him, Trident stays. We've got to make sure that we elect a government that promises us the end of weapons of mass destruction. And I'm no apologist to the SNP, but they're the only party, them and the Greens and the Scottish Socialists are the only parties offering that just now. All the unionist parties are multilateralists. They want to keep Trident here. They don't want to see it down in Devonport or an enforced unilateralism on them. Lights go on then. The democratic deficit, when you explain to people how difficult it is for the people of Scotland to get a government in Westminster that we actually wanted, lights go on. I totally agree with everyone who spoke tonight. I've got a much longer term vision for an independent Scotland, where austerity is tackled, social justice is increased, we have equality for gender, sexual orientation, race, everything. In my case, size. I think it's important that we have, that's the long-term thing, but that's a long way down the line. And I'm not being big-headed here, but in the last 9 or 10 days, I've managed to persuade 2 or 3 undecideds on my staff to say, well, you know, right enough, you know, we can go it alone. We're not subsidy junkies. And like Clay, is it Clay? Like Mary quite rightly said, if we were the subsidy junkies that we're told who we are, they'd want rid of us as quick as get out. So it's very important we take this argument on. Sorry, I don't know your name. Jim. Jim's absolutely right. I've been downhearted at times. I went along to that meeting last night in East Kilbride to actually give myself a boost. I was feeling so down with poll results and John Menzies says they're going to leave. I don't believe all that garbage, but people do. I don't believe it, but people do. And you get the drip, 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 drip of you can't do it, you can't do it, you're going to fall flat on your face, there'll be no jobs, look at the state he is, your football team's garbage. You get, mind you, they are, sorry. You get the drip, 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 drip of you can't do it. It's like a child, can you imagine? I've got kids. Can you imagine when my kids were tiny, I told them from the day that they could understand it, that they were garbage. See now, they'd be garbage. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy that if we stand up on the 18th of September and take our chance, like Mary says, and I looked up the UN website, there's a list of 193 nations, Afghanistan at the top and Zimbabwe at the bottom. See in the section that's S, there's a seat for us in there. And all we need to do is make the right decision on the 18th of September, and we can take our place at the table of independent nations of this world, and we can solve the problems that will come up, because they will, and we can solve the challenges that come up, but it's us that will do it, because we will keep our democracy, like Robin says, like a dog at our heel, because if they don't do what we say, in a small country like Scotland, they're for the high jump, and the next lot that come in better be bloody better.
We just have 1 or 2 final thoughts or questions or anything like that before we call it a day.
My concern is how do you spread the word in regard to working in education, that it's, not say allowed, but I mean, I've been kind of told in no uncertain terms.
Don't talk about it in school.
That's
I'm told not to talk to the Deans about it. Yeah. You can't stop me talking about it in the staff room.
Yeah. Well, we got an email, didn't we? Last week from a teacher in a local authority who was point blank refused to allow to talk about anything in school. They weren't allowed the yes sticker in their car. Oh.
So what can you do?
don't have that authority, they can't.
That's taking it too far.
And what upsets me is like they're talking about politics should be separate from schools. Politics is at the heart of schools. You know, schools are at the heart of society, and politics is about society.
Well, Susan was saying earlier, there's stuff on the Education Scotland website you can use in schools, so that's obviously their intention to use discussing schools.
Absolutely, one of the things at the start, 18 months or so ago, was that when they introduced that it was going to be 16, 17-year-olds were going to be allowed to vote, was how we're going to provide them with the opportunity to think about this and do it. And so Education Scotland have pulled together websites for both, and they work for 17, 18-year-olds, they equally work for 46-year-olds, 47-year-olds, 80-year-olds, and whatever, because they're just information. They are the balance, and for us, what you can't do is unless you know your range really well, you can't go in and say you've got to vote this way. You shouldn't be openly making it difficult. You shouldn't be just simply putting one side. But that's the point of this. This is about re-engaging young people in our politics with a small p, so that they get to be the position where Mary is, that you can stand up and do that, be engaged in it fully, and actually vote. Because that's the danger we have in our country, is folk are not voting. So if they're not voting, that is a worse position. So Education Scotland has got a whole range of different resources and things that have been pulled together because they were told to do so in order to provide teachers in schools with the resources that they needed to provide the balanced argument for the young people. And as far as discussing it in your staff room, it's like anything else. It's kind of up to your staff room what they discuss. You can only shout each other down in whatever way. And
I think it's just some of you know I'm a quality improvement officer, so these issues have arisen, and there has been an issue in an authority not far from here about a school. It is important, I think, because what happened in this circumstance was no parent complained about something. And it was aligning the schools, a group of parents who were supporting Yes, were aligning the school and a website basically with the Yes campaign. Now that just opens a door for the No campaign, for No people to create trouble. So the way that's being handled is that absolutely free parents can make their own decisions. The parents can come together and there can be a Yes group or a No group within a school, as there can be within staff. But we don't associate, it's a personal capacity, as Susan and I are both here on that basis, and it's not associating the authority of the school with either, and the press office has been really clear with either campaign. And we need to remain vigilant about that too, that that is the position. The authority cannot, it's not serfdom, they can't say that you can no longer speak. That's what Susan was talking about, was talking in the classroom, which is quite a complex thing.
Yes,
that's different. But interpersonal discussions are purely that, interpersonal.
I was working in a room and I was two support staff were in it, and it was after school.
Yeah.
And had this discussion, and they were absolute no's to begin with, and as the time went on, it's obviously badgering them, wasn't it? But what I found is they actually no argument, was just they were too scared. And when you spoke to them about it and you gave them more information, they were really starting to, look at it in a different light. And Shan came in at the right point and turned to her and asked her, what do you think about it? And of course she was equally as enthusiastic as I was. And I thought, this is a totally missed opportunity. You've got a massive staff, but you can't really get to speak to them, and if you are, it's frowned upon, and there have been repercussions at somewhere down the line, but also you don't want to jeopardise, anybody that has got something good to say, if it's going to be tainted in the way you're forcing your point of view upon anyone else.
Okay, any final thoughts or anything? Well, we've done well, that's (9:15) on a Wednesday night, so we'll call it a day there. Thanks very much for coming along. We'll just say there's some information, if you're undecided, there's some information up there, and you can sign up in the email as well, and inform anything else happening as well. Okay, so thanks for coming.
You want to give any of these out? You want to give any?